Hi everyone, this is Jess from the Estevan Public Library, and today we are going to be finger knitting a hat. For this project, you will need a pair of scissors and a big ball of yarn. I recommend getting chunkier yarn. It will make your project go a little bit faster and make your hat more comfy. Let's get started. So finger knitting is mostly just weaving the yarn around your fingers. So to start, we'll take the end of our yarn here and pinch it in between our thumb and our hand. Then with the yarn facing out to the back of our hand, we're going to weave it behind our pointer finger, then around to the front of our middle finger, then behind our ring finger, and then weave it back around to the front of our pinky. And we'll pull it around so that it's behind our pinky, then to the front, in front of our ring finger. Weave that around so that's behind our middle finger, and then bring that to the front so it's around our pointer finger. Then we're going to go back around again so that we'll have two loops. So back around from the back of the pointer to the front of the middle, behind the ring, and in front of the pinky. And then we wrap it around the pinky, in front of the ring, behind the middle, and in front of the pointer finger. So now we'll have two lines on, or two sets of loops on our fingers. So now we'll take these bottom loops here and pull them up and over the second row of loops. So we'll just take that and bring it over and pull that second loop down. So now that will be our new first loop. Then we'll do that for the rest. Take the first loop, pull it up over the second, first loop, pull it up the second, pull both ends a little bit just so everything's nice and tight. And now we're back to having one loop on each finger. So we're going to repeat that process, just going around each finger. Like that. And pulling our first loop up and over our second. It's going to be a bit tight to start with, but that's okay. Just pull a little bit. It'll make it a little loose, but you can tighten it up before you start weaving the yarn again. Up and over. The first knots are also always the tightest, so don't worry if they are a little tight. So just weave in the yarn in between my fingers, pulling that up and over. And as you go, bring down your new first loops down to the bottom of your fingers as far as you can, or as far as you can. Up and over, up and over. We're going to tighten that, and already you can see the start of our hat. As we keep going, this is going to get longer. And so now we're going to keep on knitting just like that. Pull each loop up and over. And we're going to go until we have enough on our first row to wrap it around our head. I'm going to measure mine so that they fit around my ears comfortably, and then once your first row is long enough, we'll be able to move on to step number 2. So once your first row is long enough, and if it's all around your head, it's time to attach the two ends together. So before we start, we just want to make sure our row is nice and flat and all on one side. So we're going to fold that over, making sure there's no twists in it. And we're going to take our first end here with the string being, or the end with the string being the top, and this end here being the bottom. I'm going to take the bottom loop here and place it on the pinky. Then we're going to take the top loop, which is right by the string, and place that on the pinky as well. So now you should have a loop on your pointer, your middle, and your ring finger, and then 3 loops on your pinky. Now we're just going to weave as we normally would. So with this from the back, in front of your middle, behind your ring, and then on the front of your pinky at the top above the other 3 loops, then around the pinky, in front of the ring, behind the middle, and in front of the pointer. Now we'll go and we'll bring this one up. So that's the first loop over the second. We'll do the same for the middle, and same for the ring. Just going to tighten that a little bit. And now for the pinky, we're going to take the bottom loop, bring that up and over the other 3, and then we're going to do that same with the new bottom loop. Bring that up and over the 2, and then with the new bottom loop, bring that up and over our last. So now you should have 1 loop on each finger. So now we're going to continue knitting all along the top of our first row. So before we start knitting again, we're going to take our pinky and the first loop, and taking that inside loop, so this one here, going to slip it onto our pinky. So now each finger will have 1 and the pinky will have 2. And then we start knitting again. It's just weaving the yarn in between the fingers and pulling that first loop up over the second. Remember to keep it tight as you go. And then on our pinky, we're going to do the same thing we did with when we were connecting the parts together. We're going to take the bottom one, pull it up over, then the middle one, pull that over, and we're just left with the top. So we'll do that one more time. Take the next loop here, take the inside one, loop that around your pinky, do some knitting, then pull that up and over. There we go. That one's a little tricky. And as you're going, it should start to look like that. So now we're going to keep knitting, going in to the next loop and into looping around the inside one. And we're going to keep going around the first row and keep making rows until the hat covers most of our head. So be sure to take pauses and measure how well the hat's fitting. So once your hat, you have more of your hat and you have most of it covering your head, we can move on to the next step. So this is my hat after about 4 rows. It's getting pretty big, and I've tried it on a couple times and I'm happy with the fit. So far it's super comfy and it covers my ears and almost everything but the top of my head. So now that I've measured this out, I'm going to start decreasing so that we can close up the top. To decrease, we're going to take these next 2 loops here So now you'll have 3 loops on your pinky. Now we knit as we normally do, weaving in between like that, pulling the first strand up over the second, and now once you get to the pinky, going to grab the 3 bottom loops and carefully pull them up over the top loop. And now we're back to 1 loop on each finger. Now we're gonna try do that again. So here's 1 loop on the pinky, 2 loops on the pinky, going to weave in between like that, and pulling each loop up and over, and grabbing these 3 loops very carefully, pulling them over your first loop. So now we're going to keep knitting until we almost have closed off the hat. So before your hat becomes too pointy and you're left with a hole smaller than the size of your fist, we can start casting off. So to cast off, we'll start by taking the loop on our index finger and very gently pulling it off and placing it onto our middle finger. And we'll tighten that up. And then we'll take the bottom loop on our middle finger and pull that up and over our middle finger. And then we'll take that loop left, pull it off, and place it onto our ring finger. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll take the bottom loop, pull it over and off with some difficulty. And then we'll take that loop and place it onto the pinky. Then again, taking the bottom loop and pulling it over the top. So with the last loop on our pinky, we're going to carefully pull it off, make it a little bit bigger, and then we'll take our yarn and fold it in half. We'll take that folded end of the yarn and thread it into the loop. So once the yarn is threaded through the loop, we'll pull out about a foot of yarn and then grab our scissors and trim. Now we'll pull our yarn as tight as we can. And now we're ready to move on to the final step. To close our hat and finish it up, we'll take the end of our yarn here and through the loops at the top of the hat, we'll weave the end of the yarn through in a zigzag pattern. We'll start by going through the first loop across from where you cast it off. We'll take the end of our thread and just thread it through the loop and pull the yarn all the way through. Pull the yarn tight and thread it through the loop right beside your knot. As you're weaving the yarn through, be sure to keep it tight as you're working so that no holes appear at the top of your hat. So now we'll just continue the process of threading our yarn through the loops across the hole until it's closed up. So once you're finished weaving your thread, just double check. Make sure there's no gaps. Right. Just gonna thread through a little bit and fix that up. Once there's no holes and you're happy with it, we'll take the yarn and make a knot, keeping the knot as close to the hat as we can. Then just snip it off. And if you haven't yet already, if you still have the tail on your hat, fluff that out. You can weave that through a couple of your bottom loops there. Bring it all together through those ones. Gonna move it back around. Before I pull it too tight, just gonna make a knot with that as well. So you can wear it like this. I'm gonna flip mine inside out, because that's where all the nice pattern is. Now you have a warm hat. And there you are. You have a lovely hat for the rest of the winter. Remember, throughout this video, I used measurements that worked for my hat. Yours will be a little different depending on how big or how small you like yours to be. Thank you all so much for joining me on this take and make. If you enjoyed this and want to show off your work, please be sure to tag us on your social media posts. I hope you can all join us for our next take and make, but until then, take care.